Hello, everyone. Today's date is February 19, 2023. We have a simulation, Israeli-Palestinian Confederation simulation with Dr. Doron Navot. We are simulating how a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine could make peace and how it will function. I did not have an opportunity to meet with Dr. Navot ahead of time, but we exchanged emails and we agreed that half of the event today would be the simulation and half of it would be him giving us his vision of peace or telling us about the difficulties in the Arab-Israeli relations in Israel and in Palestine. What we are proposing is a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine based on secular democracy with the people in Gaza, the West Bank and Israel, 14 million people, with three branches of government: legislative branch, a judicial branch, and an executive branch, a government that would be separate from the Israeli and the Palestinian government. We are not proposing the dismantling of the Israeli or the Palestinian government. We are proposing creating a separate government from the people, from the government of Israel and Palestine, that would be in competition with the Israeli and the Palestinian government, but will give a veto power to the Israeli and the Palestinian government. We have a website, it's ipconfederation.org. If you go to the website, you can read the entire Constitution and you can better understand what is our vision, what are the three branches of governments consist of: the legislative, the executive, and the judicial, and what will be the function of each branch of government. We are speaking about an election to set up the government with 300 parliament members, Israelis and Palestinians, based on equality, based on democracy, and based on separation of power and separation between religion and government. My name is josefavesar. My email is josefavesar@gmail.com. You can send me your comments regarding what you've seen or any other issue that you have or you want to clarify regarding our concept for peace. We have many recordings that have been done in the past of similar simulations, and they are available on our websites. And many of the questions that you may be wanting to ask are have been answered in the previous simulation. So today's guest is Dr. Doron Navot. Dr. Doron Navot is the head of the Jewish Arab Center with the School of Political Science at the University of Haifa. His research focuses on ethics, law, and politics, with his current attention being the effect of the far right in Israel on the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. I assume that this is what he will speak about when we are done with the simulation today. We're going to do a little shorter version of the simulation to have Dr. Navot speak. His articles have been published in the New Yorker, the Washington Post, the Jerusalem Post, and Haaretz. Our future, on March 5th, we will have Rabbi Neil Kamish Daniels and Gilly Getz, who is a photojournalist with Combatants for Peace. On March 19, we will have Dr. Igal Binun, who is a historian, Israeli historian. He focuses a lot about Moroccan Jews and Arab Jews and the relationship between the Arab Jewish community and Israel. Then we will have on April 2nd, Dr. Yila Divnat Ranan and attorney Hanan Al-Sana. One is Israeli and one Palestinians. They are engaged in Israeli-Arab politics. We will have Professor Oren Iftachel. He is a part of Land for All, and he agreed to participate in our simulation on April 16th. Then we will have Sam Bahur and Bernard Avishai on April 30th this year. They have written a op-ed in the New York Times supporting the concept of a confederation, much different than our concept, but they use the word confederation just like we did. But their vision is totally different than ours. But they agreed to be in the simulation. We had many guests in the past, from Gidon Levy, Alan Dershowitz, Avram Borg, Sami Smucham. As you can see, the list is very long, and we are very appreciative to all these guests that appeared in our previous simulations. The simulation timeline is 120 minutes. Like I said, today will be shorter because of Dr. Navot's presentation regarding his vision in Israel and Palestine. We have several segments in the simulation, and after each segment, we asked Dr. Navot to opine about what he has seen regarding how we believe a common government could function and make peace. And then we will have an audience question and answer for Dr. Navot, and also closing remarks for everyone. Before we, let me start with showing you a video of that explains our vision for peace, and it's 2 minutes.
The conflict between Israelis and Palestinians has endured for generations, and instead of time healing the wounds, it's only caused the anger to fester and the violence to grow. But what if there was a way to alleviate the tension? Something that may not outright solve every problem, but at least create a forum that encourages a peaceful compromise. Welcome to the Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, a common third government between the Israeli and Palestinian citizens, specifically designed to foster peace, tolerance, and economic prosperity between the two nations. Here's how it works. First off, both Israel and Palestine will keep their respective governments. Israel's Knesset and the Palestinian National Authority will remain unchanged. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation, IPC, will be a third entity acting as a unifying agent between the two. The IPC will comprise 300 parliament members elected from 300 districts in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. Above them will preside a president and vice president, one Israeli and one Palestinian. In order for the IPC to pass a law, it will require a 55% majority from its Israeli representatives, as well as a 55% majority from its Palestinian representatives, thereby preventing either side from monopolizing the legislature. Of course, the IPC won't undermine the political power of either the Israeli or the Palestinian government. At any time, Israel or Palestine may veto a law passed by the IPC. If neither side vetoes, the law is passed. And the two nations are another step closer to resolution. Please help us make this a reality. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation. We might speak different languages, but we all mean the same thing.
So we are going to be simulating what we just saw in the video. And typically before each simulation, we do a pre-simulation survey. We want to see if we are able to have different results at the end of the simulation. So we'll ask you to vote right now at this time. Do you support a common government in Israel and Palestine, West Bank and Gaza? Common government based on what you saw in the video to make peace. Please vote at this time. All of you, please vote, as many as possible. Okay. Um, Published the results. 14 out of 15 voted yes. That's 93%. And 1 out of 15 voted no. That's 7%. Okay. That's very, very, very high. Probably because a lot of you have already participated in previous simulations and you already know what it's about. I do not expect those kind of results if we had a real public opinion poll in Israel and Palestine, because you need to know what it's about before you get to say yes. But I'm very encouraged by that. Our objective is to demonstrate how a common government between Israel and Palestine that includes all the people in Israel, the West Bank and Gaza could make peace. We are not anti-Israeli or anti-Palestinians. We are pro-peace. Dr. Doron Navot is not a speaker for the IPC. He was invited to stress test the IPC. I did not have a chance to meet with Dr. Navot, but I have, usually I meet with speakers. This time I was not able, unfortunately. So a lot of what he's going to see now is new, unless he watched other simulations that we have on our website. But as far as I know, what he sees now is completely new to him. We are pro-peace. We follow our own narrative. We do not follow the Israeli narrative or the Palestinian narrative. And we expect that the common government will follow its narrative, the narrative for the entire area, not pro-Israeli or pro-Palestinian. We expect to have a rigorous discussion, but it will have to be respected discussion. We do not preclude other formulas for peace. In fact, we are encouraging people to have other formulas and to present those formulas. We are not claiming exclusivity. We think you should consider other options or other plans that are being presented. We will ask Dr. Navot to judge this formula for peace based on these criteria. First of all, could the IPC formula attain peace? Is the IPC plan implementable? Is there a downside to either the Israelis or the Palestinians if we implement this program? However, we asked Dr. Navot to be fair and not to judge it based on perfection. It is an impossibility to create a perfect plan. We asked Dr. Navot to judge it based on the alternative, not based on perfection. Perfection, we believe, is the enemy of good. The simulation expectation is that we are proposing several legislations and the Constitution. What you see is the tip of the iceberg. We are only limited by time. We ask you to look at the big pictures and avoid technical arguments and refrain from comments. Questions are okay. In fact, questions are encouraged. So comments such as, this is unrealistic, Israel will never allow this to happen, please wait for comments until the end. And I'm going to stop you when you start making comments during the simulation, because we have to move along. But if you have questions, then please ask the questions, because we want to clarify what we are showing. So if you have genuine questions, please ask the questions and I will answer. This is a simulation. So we ask you to accept certain facts, that the Israeli Prime Minister represents Israelis only, that the Palestinian leaders represent Palestinian only. However, because this is a simulation, we ask you to assume certain things. And the assumptions that we want you to make, and this is only assumptions, but we want you to accept those assumptions. that we just finished today an online election that lasted 3 months. So today is February 19. We just finished the election today. We want you to assume that 14 million people had an opportunity to vote. That's in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. We want you to assume that 5 million people actually voted, that 3 million Palestinians voted and 2 million Israelis voted. We want you to assume, for the purpose of the simulation, that the president received 1.5 million votes and the vice president received 1.3 million votes. We want you to assume that I, Joseph, have been elected as president. Now, I do not intend to run as president and not even qualified under the Constitution, but it makes it easier for me to run this simulation if we assume that I was elected president, and you'll see why as we go along. I also want you to assume that 300 parliament members were elected, and each parliament member represents 47,000 people. So if you divide 14 million by 300, you'll get to 47,000. So I'm going to be asking you to volunteer to act as either Israeli prime minister, a Palestinian Authority leader, or Hamas leader. But before I ask you to volunteer, I want to ask you, do you have any questions? Dr. Navot, do you have any questions, or the audience, about those assumptions? Dr. Navot, do you have any questions about those assumptions? I don't hear.
Do you hear me?
Yeah, I hear you now.
Thank you. No, I don't have questions.
Okay, are you willing to accept those questions, those assumptions?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there any people in the audience that have questions about those assumptions? I believe that those assumptions are realistic if we actually have the elections. If you take into consideration that one day of war between Israel and Palestine, Israel and Gaza, is over $100 million, one day of war can make those assumptions a reality. So if you have any questions, not comments, about these assumptions, let me know and I'm willing to respond. Now I'm going to ask you you are the participants. You will be now, we will ask you to be either Israeli prime minister, Hamas leader, or PA leader. And we'll also ask you to be a parliament member in the simulation. This is a simulation, it's not a speech. So I'm asking you to choose your nationality, and with the understanding that you represent your district, and your district may be exclusively Palestinian or exclusively Israeli, or it may be mixed, such as if your district is in northern Gaza, southern Israel, or in the West Bank, or in Jerusalem. So let's test the voting, but you'll have to choose what district you represent, and you have to choose whether you're Israeli or Palestinian. So I'm showing you a map, and I may be asking you, what city are you representing? Are you Israeli or Palestinian? So let's start test the voting, and I'll ask those of you who chose to be Palestinian parliament members, please vote yes. Those of you who chose to be Palestinian parliament members, please vote yes.
What about the leaders, Joseph?
I'll go to the leaders next. It makes it easier for me. Palestinian parliament members. Okay, so we have published a vote. We have 10 Palestinian parliament members. And let's have Israeli parliament members. Please vote yes. Okay, published, so we have 6 Israeli. And I ask you to be intellectually honest and stay the whole time as either Israeli or Palestinian parliament member, and keep in mind what district you represent, because I may ask you during the simulation. Also, we need volunteers to act as Prime Minister of Israel. Do I have Prime Minister of Israel? Someone who is willing to be the Prime Minister of Israel in the simulation. You will be given the right to veto. Do I have someone who is willing to be the Prime Minister of Israel? Even if you can switch from a Palestinian parliament or Israeli parliament member, you can switch to be an Israeli Prime Minister. Do we have a Prime Minister of Israel?
I nominate Charles.
Charles? Charles, you accepting?
Yeah, okay.
Okay. Do I have someone to be a Hamas leader? I need a Hamas leader and I need a PA leader.
I'll do
That-
Hamas, Joseph.
Okay. Lawrence Wilkinson, terrific. And do I have a PA leader? Someone
I
to
can be.
is that Shlomo?
Yeah.
Okay, terrific. Okay, so that you're aware, as a Prime Minister of Israel, as Hamas leader and a PA leader, you are not allowed to vote. You are a separate and different government, but you will be given a veto power. Okay, first order of business is we need to ratify the Constitution. So, and on this Constitution, only the parliament members will be allowed to ratify. And so that it's clear, just like any other Constitution, you have to assume that you have been running now for a whole year to be elected. You already know what the Constitution is, and therefore it would not really make sense if you are against the Constitution. Libby, could you please read the Constitution out loud?
We believe that Palestinians and Israelis are entitled to equal rights under the law and guaranteed human rights and freedom. The Israeli-Palestinian Confederation does not intend to supersede or supplant the Palestinian or Israeli governments, nor to abrogate or undermine any agreements between those governments. We recognize the need to work with the Israeli and Palestinian governments. Our purpose is to resolve conflicts and to expand the relationship between Palestinians and Israelis in a fair and equitable manner. We believe in equal rights under the law, guaranteed human rights, and freedom for all. We voluntarily give the legislatures and the governments of Israel and Palestine veto power over legislation that we pass relating to the domain of control of those governments. We believe in the separation of power between the legislative, executive, and judicial branches. We believe in the creation of a permanent secular government for all the people residing in Israel and Palestine. We believe in having a separate judicial branch relating to IPC legislation with Israeli and Palestinian judges, with a system to avoid biased decisions based on nationality.
Thank you. I saw that more people joined, so I'm asking you to choose whether you are Israeli or Palestinian parliament members and vote either as Israeli or Palestinian parliament member. The important thing in this Constitution is that we are a separate government. We do not intend to supersede or supplant the Israeli or Palestinian government. We do not we do not want to undermine those governments, but we agree, this is the Constitution, we agree to give a veto power to the Israeli and the Palestinian governments relating to issues that affects their domain of control. Not on every issue, only issues that affects their domain of control. Does anyone have any questions? Dr. Navot, do you have any question regarding the Constitution? Or does anyone else have questions regarding the Constitution? Please speak up.
Not clear to me where is the line between under their control and or not. They may assume that everything should be under their control, and therefore they would veto it.
Well, no, the question is,
like,
who do we give the veto power to? We are the one who decide what is under their domain or control. And basically, what it means is if we need the separate governments to implement, if we need their assistance to implement our legislation, that means that it falls within the domain of control. If we do not need those governments, if we can implement the legislation without their permission, without their involvement, then we don't give them a veto power. We decide what's within their domain of control, not those governments. Any other question?
Yes. How will the system work if one side votes, one of the, either the Palestinian side vote within its domain, or the Israeli one votes within its domain to not separate the power between the legislative and the executive?
You have to accept the Constitution. If you cannot be part of the parliament unless you accept the Constitution. And this is, so we are here to ratify the Constitution. If you do not accept the Constitution, you cannot be part of the parliament.
You cannot be part of the IPC parliament, also not part of either side.
Oh, you can be part of the Israeli or the Palestinian government. You cannot be part of both. That would be a conflict of interest. The Constitution, the full Constitution says that you cannot be part of the Israeli and the Palestinian, or you cannot be part of either the Israeli or the Palestinian government and the IPC government. You have to choose. So basically, if you are in the Israeli Knesset, you cannot be part of the common parliament.
Okay.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, hearing no questions, let's have the Palestinian parliament members please ratify the Constitution. Palestinian only, Palestinian only. Parliament members. Okay, let's publish the vote. 9 out of 9 Palestinian parliament members, 100% of the Palestinian parliament voted in favor of the Constitution. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Please ratify the Constitution. Okay, publish the vote. Okay, so 4 out of 5 ratified, 1 did not ratify, so that person will be expelled from the parliament, because in order to be a parliament member, you need to accept the Constitution, and therefore at this time you are expelled. You cannot vote on any issues because you are no longer in the parliament. The person who received the second number of votes in your district will be sworn in as the parliament member according to the Constitution. So let's go to the next issue, and that is. So before I go to the next issue, I usually, oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to ask Dr. Navot. Do you have any comments regarding this constitution?
Yes. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Actually, I don't understand why the citizens of the area don't confirm or disconfirm the constitution. Why you ask the parliament members?
Because this is the constitution requires, the constitution says that the parliament members do. We can change that if so desired, but we feel that it's a lot more manageable to have the parliament members ratify the constitution. I don't think there's any country in the world in which the public has been asked to ratify the constitution. I may be wrong, but I know in America, the constitution was not ratified by the people themselves.
I think that if you don't, you have a legitimacy problem. I mean,
Well,
if you want to have any legitimacy,
well,
yeah,
the legitimacy, we already passed that because we had votes. We have 5 million people voted. So we are legitimate. We have.
yeah, but the Israeli government would say that it's all leftist and people that are not, part of them were probably Palestinian citizens of Israel and part of them were radical left.
Yeah, I know that we are not. We are concerned with peace. We are not concerned about satisfying the arguments made by the Israeli government. We are the only legitimate government in this area because we are the only government that provided the ability to the entire area to vote. Israel did not give the Palestinians the right to vote. The Palestinian government did not give Israelis the right to vote. We are the only government, and we just finished the elections today, and we gave 14 million people the right to vote, and we were elected. So we are the only legitimate government.
Okay, if you want my input about, as somebody who study Israeli politics, so
Yeah, well, I mean,
it already sounds extremely strange, but
no, I know it.
at this stage,
Yeah.
it sounds, something that from reality, it's I don't know how to, I don't even know how to communicate the gap between your suggestion and your rhetoric about the people voted. I mean,
Well,
Israeli government, and it will reject it entirely. But anyhow, let's continue.
I asked you, do you have any comments about the assumptions? You said no. So you're
No, I didn't understand that the constitution would be rectified by about the parliament members. But okay.
okay, but we have 5 million people who voted, so we are legitimate. We are, and okay. All right. Any other questions? All right. So to answer Dr. Navot's comments.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, you're.
how is there a mechanism to change the constitution? I know that 100% of us voted now.
Yes.
What if somebody comes in a year and wants to change the constitution? What's the mechanism?
The mechanism is that for the first ratification of the Constitution, you need 55% of the Israeli and the Palestinian parliament members, and subsequent ratification requires 65% of the Israeli and the Palestinian parliament members.
Thanks.
Okay, so
Sure.
any other questions?
Joseph,
Yes.
Joseph. According to what Doron was mentioning, he mentioned that the Israeli are a completely right-wing citizen, and he's saying about the IPC, they wouldn't accept the IPC because it's all full of left wing.
What's your question, Sean?
I don't know if do you think this is possible? Because if all the Israeli are right wing and they elected their government to be right wing, how? So
Okay,
I don't know
so
if there's going to be. Do you think there's going to be any more left wing in Israeli society? Because most of them are right wing, and I don't
All
know if the right wing will agree with the IPC.
okay, so so it's right in front of you, the answer. To Dr. Navot is Israel does not have a reason to object. Israel failed to make peace. It has no reason to object. It cannot articulate any reason to object. To answer your question, Sean, Israel is not a monolithic society. Not all 7 million or Israelis think the same. Not 7 million Palestinians think the same. The idea is that will be a common government for those reasonable Israelis and Palestinians, not the right wing on either side. They do not have the legal authority to object. They don't have the moral authority to object. And if they decide to object, I'm speaking about the Israeli and the Palestinian government, they may lose legitimacy because they never were able to make peace. They don't have a mechanism to make peace. And so that you know, they never really attempted to disrupt. And what we have done in the past, we had an election in the past on December 12, 2012. And we had an ad in the New York Times on October 1st, 2012. Now, this is not fake. This is real. We had a full page ad in the New York Times on December 12, 2012, announcing the election. And the Israeli or the Palestinian governments did not try to object at all. And we did have an election. It wasn't very successful, but that's because there was no awareness of the election. But we did have the election, and there was no attempt to disrupt it.
Okay, well, I was just hearing it concerning what Doron was saying, what Navot was saying. That's what. Okay, thank you.
All right.
I do see one more hand up. Gabriel Belcastro has a hand up.
Okay, hi, Gabriel. Ask your question.
I have one perplexity about this constitution, which is there is the separate legislation between separate legislative bodies, between Palestinians and Israeli, but there is not a provision for the territorial division where the legislation applies. This creates a situation.
Are you asking why is there no description of territories in the
exactly, because yes, because my point is that when you have
I'll answer that. Let me answer that. We are not about land, we are about people. And so we are about people in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. The Israeli government and the Palestinian governments are about land. We are about the 14 million people that live in Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza.
But the problem is that when you have a legislation, the point of having a legislation is that the community, the people who live in the place are subjected to one law, only one legislation. But if you have,
what is your question, please? Because
did you consider this problem, the territorial problem? Because this is a very big problem.
Look, we are the only legitimate government for the people of Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. Okay, we are not a second-class government. In other words, we are the government for the whole area, Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. Our vision of peace is not about separation. It's not about segregation or two-state. Our vision of peace is for the whole area of the people of Israel and the West Bank and Gaza based on democracy. Okay, let's go to the first order of for the parliament is in granting a veto power. Libby, could you please read it?
The Confederation is the government of the entire population of Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. We hereby bestow a veto power relating to legislation affecting sovereignty to the following: the government of Israel, the Palestinian Authority, and Hamas. And in the event of changes in government, this legislation may be amended or repealed.
Dr. Navot, do you have any comments or questions? You're the only one who is allowed to give comments and questions.
No, I think maybe I will let the simulation run because I think that you are so. I think you don't. Maybe you don't understand. You want to ignore the reality in Israel. But I can assure you that the Israeli government at this stage will stop everything, any connection to this initiation, government. I don't know how to call it,
What is
because
the basis? What is the basis upon which you provide these
I
assurances?
don't trust you. I don't trust you. There is no such people of the territory. They are the Israeli people. They are Palestinian people. You're talking about in the name of the people of the area. There are no such a
Okay,
group of people.
so you're saying the Israeli government would say that they do not trust this common government?
Of course. We
Okay.
don't recognize it. We don't know who you are. You sound like a bunch of leftists, of radicals, of liberals, of idealists who pay you, etc.
No, I mean,
They can speak even soft. They will not. I think. You know. I can tell you if you want my input as somebody who study Israeli politics and the relations between Israel and the Palestinian citizens. Take a figure like Mansour Abbas. I met him today.
mm-hmm.
He can't say anything because he's afraid that they would charge him of being, Palestinian. He doesn't mention the fact that he's Palestinian.
Okay, but we are a separate government. We are
You're a
not
separate government that the Israeli government would not recognize or acknowledge.
okay.
This is what I'm trying to say. But
Okay, so let's see once we pass legislation whether they will have the legitimacy not to acknowledge. That's a good question. Any other comments based on what you see right now? We agree to give the Israeli government and the Palestinian government and Hamas government a veto power.
I have a question.
Yes, Yair.
You give the Palestinian Authority veto power about its domain. You give the Hamas veto power about its domain. What if the domains are exactly overlapping?
We decide if their domain overlaps, we give both of them. We give veto power to all of them.
Okay.
If we are not able to implement our legislation, we give them a veto power.
Joseph, can I ask one more thing?
Sure.
I think the fact that you give Hamas a veto power make it extremely problematic for Israeli government. And even if Yair Lapid was the prime minister, the fact that you're talking about Hamas as an entity, that I, as somebody who participate in this government, I reject any acknowledgement of Hamas. You enforce me to acknowledge Hamas as an entity.
No, we're not. We are a separate
They have a
government.
veto power. And I accept that they will have a veto power. I don't recognize Hamas.
I know. We don't ask you to recognize Hamas. We don't
You ask me to give them a veto power.
No, we are not asking you to authorize our veto power. We decide to give the Israeli prime minister a veto power. We decide to give the PA a veto power, and we decide to give Hamas a veto power. We're not asking you to recognize any of those entities. These are
So I'm equal to Hamas. They have a veto power, and I have a veto power, but I don't know who Hamas is.
correct. We give you equal power to veto. Yes, but it doesn't mean that you're equal to them.
Yeah, but okay.
All right. Let's take a vote. Palestinian parliament members, please vote. Do you agree to give a veto power to all three and these entities? Veto power to all these three entities. Okay, publish the vote. Okay, 89% agree to give a veto power to all of the Palestinian parliament members agree to give a veto power to all these three entities. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Please vote. We need more Israelis. Okay, let's publish the vote. 80% of the Israeli parliament members agree to give a veto power. And so let's go now to the first order of legislation. Here, we are giving a veto power. This is the first legislative act that we are giving a veto power to the Israeli and the Palestinian and Hamas leaders a veto power. Libby, could you please read this?
So this is about teaching tolerance and understanding. Both educational systems to teach tolerance in their public schools. Devote a certain number of hours for both sides to teach the history of the Israelis and the Palestinians. Prioritizing teaching Arabic and Hebrew in public schools to achieve proficiency of both languages by Israeli and Palestinian students. Create a mutual task force to ensure the teaching of both languages. Educators to draft textbooks together and arrange for a regular exchange of teachers. Public media on both sides to provide fair and equal coverage daily for teaching tolerance. IPC as the facilitator to ensure that both sides are fairly represented. We hereby submit this legislation to the Israeli government, the Palestinian government, and Hamas, and we bestow upon them a veto power which may be exercised in the next 60 days.
All right. Does anyone have any questions? Dr. Doron Navot, do you have any questions or comments regarding this particular legislation? Dr. Navot?
He said no.
Oh, okay. Does anyone else have any comments or no comments, questions regarding this legislation? Okay, hearing no questions.
Shlomo has his hand up.
Okay,
Oh,
Shlomo.
yeah, no, I'm sorry. That was before. I was thinking about what Gabriel tried to ask, and he didn't finish. His question was, okay, if there is a law of something, and now it depends, do I obey the Israeli law, the Palestinian law, or the IPC law? Which law holds? I think that's what he was asking.
Okay, so
Okay.
the Israeli and the Palestinian government's law are supreme. They are supreme over the IPC law. However, if there is a conflict of laws, the Israeli laws and the Palestinian laws are supreme. However, if this legislation passes, and if the Israeli and the Palestinian parliament government decline to veto it, then it becomes the law of the land of Israel, the West Bank, and Gaza. Let's take a vote. Palestinian parliament members, please vote on this legislation. Okay, publish the vote. 100%, 10 out of 10 of the Palestinian parliament members voted yes. Let's go to the Israeli parliament members. Please vote. Okay, let's publish the vote. 9 out of 9 Israelis, 100% Israelis voted yes. Let's go to the Hamas leader. Mr. Hamas leader, are you going to veto this legislation?
No.
Let's go to the PA leader. Are you, Mr. Palestinian Authority leader, are you going to veto this legislation?
No.
let's go to the Israeli Prime Minister. Mr. Prime Minister, are you going to veto this legislation?
I would accept it with the following stipulation that the Israeli government determines who will be on the task force in creating the mutual textbooks and languages.
What line are you referring to?
Create a mutual task force to ensure the teaching of both languages, and educators to draft textbooks together. So basically, as the Israeli government, I would want to have control over who is on those boards and committees.
You would want to know who on the Israeli side or on both?
Yeah, on the Israeli side.
Okay, no, that's no problem, of course. All right, Dr. Navot, do you think the Prime Minister of Israel would veto this legislation in real life?
I don't know, but I guess all his consideration would be image. You know, he's not going to cooperate with.
I know.
But I don't know really.
Okay, all right, then let's go to the next legislation, and that is joint economic zone between Israel and Palestine. Libby, could you please read it?
Joint Economic Zone, JEZ, between Israel and Gaza. Exclusive IPC management and control. A common economy. Education, industry, agriculture, sewer treatment, desalination plants, solar farms, wind power, and green energy. International airport and seaport. Equally accessible to Israeli and Palestinians. And we hereby submit this legislation to the Israeli government, the Palestinian government, and Hamas. We bestow upon them a veto power which may be exercised in the next 60 days.
And does anyone have any questions regarding this legislation?
I do. Again, the economic,
Yes, I like your question. Go ahead.
sorry, the economic zone is again divorced from any territory. Is it a specified area? Or is this?
It says between Israel and Gaza. So the idea is that 50% of the territory will be contributed by Gaza and 50% by Israel to build a joint economic zone that would be managed by the IPC to have a common industry, education, the airport, seaport, and will be managed exclusively by the IPC.
Joseph, as Hamas leader, I have a question for you.
Yes.
Will I have any input at all into the exclusive IPC management and control other than those members in the parliament that represent me?
Yes, it would be. It says, I believe, in cooperation, common education, equally accessible. It says joint economic zone. It doesn't. It does say exclusive. Are you objecting to that terminology, exclusive IPC control?
Not necessarily, if it is automatically includes someone I might want in there.
Well, this is all in cooperation between the Israeli and your government and the PA government, and to work together, but it will be managed. The idea is that it would give enough assurances to your government and to the Israeli government that it would be a peaceful joint zone and would not turn into a military zone, and it would help both sides enrich their economy, and would assure you to have the international airport that you so wanted and the seaport, but it will also assure Israel that the international airport and the seaport will not be used in order to bring arms and weapons.
Okay. Is there envisioned either under the joint government, the Confederation, or somehow under the three entities beneath it, some sort of staff and force that would do this?
Of course, yes. We are not hostile to your government or to the Israeli government. We want to work together with your government to benefit the 2 million people. You have 60% unemployment in Gaza. So we want to help your people. I am the president of the whole area. I want to help your people reach zero unemployment.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I
Dr.
have some, but I'll hold them until the,
Okay,
until you ask for the veto.
okay, Dr. Navot, do you have any comments before we take a vote?
Just want a clarification. If you have exclusive management and it's international airport, what are my guarantees that I want to control the Israeli government wants to control the,
Well, the
Yes.
whole idea is that up to now you were not able to control. That's why we created a third entity that will work together with you. We will have Israelis and Palestinians in the common government, but we are willing to work in cooperation with you, with the Israeli
Yeah.
government.
I think that the Israeli government would find it too risky,
Okay.
security speaking.
Well, yeah, but remember, in this, we will have a joint police force, and in it you will have Israeli military people, you'll have Palestinian military people, all working in the joint zone under the IPC police force.
Which Israeli government doesn't trust, IPC.
Yeah, it doesn't trust, but it's not able to give peace to the people of Israel. It is in constant wars with Israel, with Gaza. And there are 2 million people in Gaza that are unemployed, and Israel has no answer to that problem. And that's why we are creating a third entity, which is not the enemy of Israel, not the enemy of Hamas or the PA. It is a joint. And don't
Speaking
forget,
Joseph,
5 million people voted for us.
Joseph, if we want to be serious, up until now, everything you say, I was elected, da 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 da. This thing, I don't think that Israeli government will allow.
Okay,
They will intervene physically because they are against the international airport not controlled by them.
Okay, what if
They would see it as a state,
Okay,
which they are.
Okay, what if we are able to obtain commitment of $5 billion with a B dollars a year for this joint economic zone that will be managed by the IPC? Would Israel object to that?
Seriously, full control of Israeli government on borders. I'm serious now. Until now,
that's your opinion.
but I'm not sure.
All right, let's have the Palestinian parliament members vote.
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
It's kind of related to my previous question. So a large segment of the Israeli economy, a budding segment, is again not tied to a territory. It's intellectual property. It's high tech. How does what we're looking at and voting on now relate to high tech?
Well, we are creating a common economy, common industry. So we will have high tech in the joint economic zone.
But it's not going to be based on any particular land or anything.
It will be in the joint economic zone. So let's assume that it will be 5 square kilometers. It will be in that 5 square kilometers. Yes.
My point is that in the high-tech business, a lot of the economy is done from computers anywhere in the world, not necessarily limited to a particular square mileage.
Okay, they still need land. Look, this is really a technical issue. But I'm asking
But
that
it's a
you would look,
conceptual issue too.
it may be a conceptual issue, but it's a technical issue. It's not
Okay.
really. Yeah. All right, let's have the Palestinian already voted. 100% of the Palestinian parliament members voted yes. Let's have the Israeli parliament members please vote. Israeli parliament members, please vote. I don't see the voting. Dan, are the Israeli parliament members voting?
Yes.
Okay, I
share
don't
the
see it.
results.
I'm sorry?
I shared the results.
Oh, okay. 80% of the Israeli parliament members voted yes. 20% voted no. So now let's go to the Hamas leader. Mr. Hamas leader, are you gonna veto this legislation?
No,
Let's go to the PA leader. Are you gonna veto this legislation?
No.
Let's go to the Prime Minister of Israel. Are you gonna veto this legislation?
Yes, I would have to require some changes. You're asking Israel to cede sovereignty of a certain amount of its territory. And I understand the projected benefits, but realistically, to Doron's objections, there has to be some carrot politically in order to be able to accept this in the near term. So I would think, a stipulation about cessation of violence on the part of both Israel and Gaza that
Okay.
would negate the continuance of this project if any violence occurred. And
Okay, I understand. Let's go to the Hamas leader. Are you willing to stipulate to the cessation of violence if this zone is created?
yes,
And what about the PA leader? Are you willing to accept cessation of violence if this zone is created?
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Prime Minister, are you willing to accept cessation of violence if this zone is created?
yes, and then also the other thing would be my participation in, it says exclusive IPC management and control. I would think that there would have to be a joint IPC management and control. And
Okay, I think that's understood. All three already mentioned that.
all right, okay.
All right, thank you. All right, let's go to the next legislation. That's a new one, a mutual flag. A flag representing a common government for the people of Israel and Palestine. Israel will continue to fly its flag and Palestine will continue to fly its flag. Description. I'm sorry. Libby, could you please read the description?
No, that's okay. You're doing great.
Two large trees with strong visible roots representing life and the connection of both people to the land surrounded by a blue and green circle representing union between the Israeli and the Palestinian people. So that you know, someone approached me. He is I forgot the name of the association, that he's the president of some association that makes flags, and he volunteered to make a flag. And I told him, well, why don't you write a flag based on this legislation? So let me show you the flag and then we will vote on it. This is the flag that he came up with. We can change it. Does anyone have any questions regarding the flag? Hearing no questions, let's go to the Israeli Prime Minister, Palestinian parliament members, please vote on this flag. You don't have to accept it. I mean,
Can we hold out for something more attractive?
yeah, give me suggestions. Yes. Okay.
I
And
think it's fantastic.
publish the vote. 71% voted yes. I'll come up with more. Let's go to the Palestinian parliament members. Please vote.
Israeli is what you mean.
Israeli parliament members, please vote. I don't see the vote, but publish the vote. 50%. Okay, so this legislation did not pass. All right. Let's have a post-simulation survey. This is going to be hard to beat because only one person voted against it. So let's vote after participating in the simulation. Do you support a common government? This is everyone vote, please, everyone. Yes or no? Okay, so here we have 17 said yes, which is 94%, and 1 said no. Who is that one? Could you please identify yourself? Who voted no?
This is me.
Oh. Okay, so you're against the Confederation and you have the opinion against it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
I'm convinced that it's not a good idea now. I was in favor. I'm just kidding, but I'm the one.
Okay, good. I'm going to be asking you if you're willing. We did a nice video last time. If any of you are willing to support the idea of a confederation and say, I support a common government, we can record you right now. So you can say, my name is, let's say your name, like I would say, my name is Josefavesar. I support a common government for Israel and Palestine to make peace. We had 4 or 5 people last time.
Me, I'll do.
Okay. All right. So hold on. Let me pin you. To Sean. Okay, here.
I'm Sean Zahir, and I support a common government for both the people of Israel and Palestine to make peace. Thank you.
Anybody else?
Anything special you want me to talk about right now?
Well, first of all, I would like you to talk about you said you're against the common government. You're the only one voted against it. So first of all, why are you against it? And what is your vision for peace?
Oh, okay. So both questions are not things that these days I study because I'm more about Israeli politics. So maybe I say only a word or two about your questions, and maybe if you want to ask me about the current political situation in Israel and the relations between Palestinian parties and Jewish parties, I will talk about it. But because I don't think that I have any advantage as compared to you about the peace. But let me say this. Maybe I became too realistic. Although I'm a radical leftist in Israel and I voted for something very radical, I think that you're talking about something that is the gap between what you're talking about here and the reality in Israel is so huge that it sounds like science fiction. So I found myself disconnected. Although I'm sitting and speaking with radical people, this is something that is beyond the reach of even my political imagination. I can't understand, I can't imagine any government in the near future cooperating with your project. And this is why I was rejecting, because I think it's taking energy and wasting energy.
I have a question to
And maybe if it's okay, if you want that I will give a 5 minutes talk about the situation, or you're not
Sure, go ahead, speak of whatever you want to
proper.
speak. We want to enjoy your expertise on
Okay, so I want to share.
interrelated.
I want to share with you the thing that Israel is now facing its most dramatic, crucial, historical crisis in its entire history. We are people like me don't we think in terms of civic war, of bloodshed among Jews, not between Arabs and Jews. And there is a realization among people who study and follow the events that it's a struggle not only among Jews, but you can see that the camps are led by Ashkenazi against Ashkenazi. It's not Ashkenazi against the Mizrahim. It's Ashkenazim that lead the reform, and they are doing it against other Ashkenazim. And it's about who will rule Israel and how it will rule Israel. It's not only about who governs, but about the constitution of Israel, the materialistic constitution of Israel. And the government of the day is trying to put forward a legal revolution. It's a revolution. It's not coup d'etat. It's a revolution. It's a legal revolution that would change entirely the nature of Israeli regime. And the last two things that I want to tell you is, first of all, that the Arabs are excluded from the protest against the government. They are excluded by the center and the left wing. They are not welcomed they are not allowed to bring Palestinian flags. They feel excluded. They feel that it's not their struggle, although they realize that the government will hurt them and will violate their rights. They believe that this is not their struggle to make. It's something that the Jews will have to do between themselves. And tomorrow it's going to be another historical day, because the Knesset will put forward anti-liberal legislation, and the legislation that will undermine the independence of the judicial branch. And if the government will succeed, the meaning is that the Israeli state would be something completely different. Completely different. We're talking about we don't know if the revolution will succeed or not. If it will, we will have something entirely new, and there is a consensus that it's going to be something not liberal, not democratic, not pluralistic, more like an electoral dictatorship. So any questions, if you want, about how Ayman Odeh thinks about it, Mansour Abbas, Sami Abu Shkhad, the Palestinian parties, or anything you want to ask me, you are mostly welcome. The peace is is so beyond us. You're talking about peace. We're not talking about peace. We're talking about preserving the partial democratic nature of the Israeli regime, because Israel is not a full-fledged democracy, and we are facing the possibility that will be not democratic, not liberal, not pluralistic. We are in the middle of a crisis, which we don't know if we will stay half democracy that we are. So peace is something. It's like talking to somebody poor. What do you think about being a billionaire? I'm thinking about how am I finding food to eat. So let's imagine that you are a billionaire. Would you like to be a neoliberal or capitalist? What are we talking about? We are in a situation that we are having a fight about the ethnic democracy we had. This is the condition now.
Well, let me ask you a question. Do you see a relations between the Israeli internal issues, political issues, or what they call constitutional issues, even though Israel does not have a constitution? Do you see a connection between that and the Israeli-Palestinian conflict?
There is a connection, but really it's not as strong as you would like to think. It's something about a group that's trying to take advantage of electoral results which not reflect something, a change with, if you compare the results of the elections to Israel today, Israel half a year ago. The results do not reflect the reality. There is a coalition that's trying to exploit the situation and to revolutionize Israel. So, and you can't understand it as a result of the conflict, I think. You have to understand it as an attempt of a small group to exploit the elections and to change entirely Israeli regime. I think this is the best. It's something from above, not from below. It's a revolution from above of radical Jewish politicians that are trying to do something without a legitimacy from even from the Jews. But you're
All right,
fighting.
If you have questions, let's start with Shlomo, but please raise your electronic hands. It makes it easier for me to see who wants to ask the question. Shlomo, go
Okay.
ahead.
Okay, so I'd like to contest you, Doron, a little bit. I think my view is that the cancer of the occupation eventually spread into Israel, and I have a proof of it, which is you have two parliament members in the Knesset who are essentially kind of judo-Nazis, and they were in the past the Rabbi Kahana, whom they follow, who was not allowed even to be in the Knesset, and now they are allowed to be in the government. That by itself already says a lot about the connection between the Israeli-Palestinian problem and the internal, seemingly internal problem that Israel has right now.
Shall I respond or will take
Go
more?
ahead. Yeah. What's your question?
Yeah, maybe one more word about it. I would go even deeper, Doron, and look at Zionism, how Zionism has changed from finding a home for the Jews, miserable Jews from Europe and other places, and find a home in the Middle East, to the Zionism today, which is a racist regime, basically a racist ideology. Was it racist to begin with? I mean, somebody has in your place. Think about it. What was wrong? What was wrong with Zionism to begin with, if there was something wrong, and how we got here? There is a whole process of how you got to that point, and the process has a lot to do with the Palestinians, with the fact that you display the Israelis displace the Palestinians, and we relate to them in an inhumane way. We dehumanize them, and we are stealing their land, and we are like robbers. And now you have the big thief, Mr. Netanyahu. What do you think the big thief will do? How does his mind works? It works exactly the same way. We are all a bunch of thieves. So I am the chief thief, and that's what you see. And now he's stealing the democracy too. Why?
Go ahead, Doron, respond to him if you can.
Yeah. Let me tell you this. Without Netanyahu's trial, nothing would happen. So it's not the occupation. It's first and foremost Netanyahu's charges.
No, Netanyahu.
No, but Shlomo, it's not the occupation. If Netanyahu wasn't facing a trial, things would look completely different.
And Netanyahu is the consequence. He is the consequence of the occupation. He is built into it.
It's not a consequence because he wasn't a radical in this issue. Netanyahu is actually, when it comes to the Palestinians, is something in the soft right. He's not radical. He's not symbolizing. It's a non-issue. The occupation is non-issue in Israel. You can't imagine. It's a non-issue. Nobody talks about it. Not a single party talks about it. The only party that talks about it is Balad, and it didn't pass the threshold. It's a non-issue in Israel. It's not the occupation. It's something. And let me tell you another thing. with a different organization from the center and the left, you will have another 60-60. You have inter-party politics. You have a split in the joint list. You have Labour and Meretz. It's something completely, among the parties. It's not something that got to do with sociology and the occupation. It's something completely accidental. This is what I'm trying to convince you. Don't go to deep explanations. It's something that you have now a government that trying to exploit an accident and to revolutionize Israel. And I don't think that it would succeed, by the way. It had to be much more extreme and dictatorial, because the public, even the Likud, is not with the government. The public is much less radical than the current government and its agenda. It's an agenda of Yariv Levin, Simcha Rotman, that they're trying, to exploit the situation and to change Israel entirely. But it doesn't reflect, titanic changes in Israeli society. By the way, Itamar Ben-Gvir is not the most important person in the revolution. He's not there. He's becoming Ben-Gvir is the pragmatic guy. It's Rotman and Levin, and to some extent Smotrich, and Smotrich is not popular. It's Itamar Ben-Gvir that is popular, and Itamar Ben-Gvir is not the face of the revolution now. All the faces of the revolution are not the popular figures. They are not popular figures.
I understand, and thank you for your explanation. I just would like to just say one word, that the cancer is always hidden. Nobody sees it until suddenly it appears. And maybe the analogy to cancer is correct here. But I definitely appreciate you.
The analogy to what? I didn't hear you.
To cancer, the disease that it is
cancer.
To
cancer. Okay.
Yeah, the cancer of the occupation and the cancer of maybe the Zionism as a whole.
That's true. I agree, but it's something structural that's been there for 100 years. I'm trying to explain the current situation, not the problematic of Zionism. I agree with you, but I don't think that you need it, or it explains what is happening now, and why now what we are talking about is so far from reality.
Could I respond and tell you why I believe that what we are talking now is directly related to reality? And that is because Israel was created as a Jewish state. And because it was created as a Jewish state, it was not able to write a constitution for a Jewish state for several reasons. It was, when you write a constitution for a Jewish state, it becomes a racist document. You need to explain, what does a Jewish state means? You have to explain, what does a Jew mean? So they decided to go along and have a Jewish state without a constitution. And when you create a state without a constitution, you basically it's similar to building a high-rise building without blueprints, without plans. Now, the reason that Israel does not have a constitution is that it will have a legitimate way to exclude the Palestinians in the West, and now in the West Bank and in Gaza. And when you exclude the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, because there is no constitution, all the governments throughout history, all the Israeli governments throughout history were able to push their agenda in a very racist way. They were not, because they understood that they cannot give equality to the Palestinians. Constitution would give equality to the Palestinians. So they needed not to have a constitution. When you don't have a constitution, then the government can take advantage of whatever it wants at the time, because there is no blueprints. There is no constitution to prevent her from doing what what it would do. And the reason it did not have a constitution is to make sure that it would be okay. And it was always okay with all governments to exclude the Palestinians because they were not considered to be citizens. Now, Netanyahu and his government are taking advantage of the lack of constitution because he said, well, other governments have done that too. Why can't I take that? Now, he takes possibly, very reasonably, he takes advantage of the lack of constitution for his own personal benefit. But because Israel does not have a constitution, every government can take as much advantage as it wants for its own personal benefit. And so I'm saying that because Israel does not have a constitution, in order to exclude the Palestinians, in order to make sure it's a Jewish state, then it provides a system that would allow each government to do as much as it wants because there are no safety, there's no guardrails. And now the Netanyahu government wants to take more advantage for its own personal benefit. That's why we have this situation right now. It's just that the left wing in Israel is now complaining because the Netanyahu government is taking too much advantage. But in reality, they all took advantage of the fact that they were not restrained. I'm done.
Joseph,
Any other question for Dr. Doron Navot?
yes,
Who is that?
this is Abid. I was
Okay.
waiting for you to give me.
Hi, Abid. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
That's
ask your-
okay.
ask your
Hi,
question.
Joseph. How are you?
Good. How are you, Abid?
Well, actually, all what I heard it reinforce what I'm about to, the scenario I am going to put forward. And I see the only way practically is to start with a two-state solution, because Israel will realize there is no room to even to do without a constitution, eventually do at will, you know, there is no rules in the game. But
Abid,
it also,
they started with the two-state solution in 1947. What do you mean?
well, it has to become a reality right now. As first step is two-state solution, followed by your IPC.
I
You
think
see,
it's the other way around. But who's going to make it a reality, the two-state solution? Who?
that's, well,
They
that's
haven't tried enough, in your opinion?
no, two-state solutions right now, it has to be reinforced, and there is a sovereign Palestinian state. When the Israelis and the Palestinians they realize there is no way to, you know, to do at will, so to speak, you know. And by the way, talking about Netanyahu government, they are finding it is, in order to continue, they have an eternal war, internal state of war, because of the internal population conflict. So to keep the Israeli society together, keep them, you are under threat, you are under existential threat, you are so to hide all the contradiction that they are. So
Dr. Navot is saying that if Netanyahu was, basically he wants to change the laws, he wants to change the judicial system, he wants to have judges that would probably get him off his possible trial and possible conviction and overturn his conviction, because they will have different definitions of what a crime is and what is bribery is. And he says that in my opinion, that's what he's saying, that this is all related to Netanyahu's trial. And if Netanyahu was not on trial, this thing would not have happened, and Israel would be having continued to have its own internal issues, but not as severe as they are right now. Am I saying what you're thinking correctly, Dr.?
I think what you're saying is correct, and I agree with Dr. Noron. I am sorry for mispronouncing your name, but I am talking about drawing a final solution, not only for Israel. This is going to have, we are hoping, I mean, if this is go through, I think in 4 decades, we see a situation in the whole area, similar to the European Union, or so to speak, their own version.
Abed, our discussion now is this: is the internal Israeli issues, the demonstrations that we see, very severe demonstration, by the way, hundreds of thousands of people almost on a daily basis, is this related to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict or not? What do you think?
Let me say it how I see it.
Yes.
Israel right now found itself trying to continue the contradiction of its own internal, and it goes through extreme policies. So hoping for a war, or to bring this this contradiction, the internal contradictions, to bring the attention away from it, and just to buy another day. This is not going to continue. This is actually, I hope, and I for the Jews to take very strong, and it's in their interest to stand and take the lead for peace. And it's important peace. We are moving in an accelerated changes in this world. And I believe it is time for them to take the step, a 2-state solution, and then your system, IPC, and then we reach Gideon dream of 1 state. But I think the 2-state solution will tell, hey guys, you stop there and you stop there. And then when they realize that the game is over, I think it's going to drive them toward the IPC. You will see them come in droves to you. And then it followed by, we reach the destination, Gideon version of a state, 1 state.
Okay.
If this happens, and it has to happen, because the alternative, especially so to speak, figure of speech, God forbid, the world is in a very extreme, in danger, with all these weapons and all of these things. And so I think it is historically, it is time to bring peace. And this is I lived most of my life actually thinking about the conflict of the Israelis and the Palestinians, and I appreciate your work, Joseph.
Yeah, thank you.
Especially
Thank
about
you, Abed.
Zionism and all of
Let
this.
me ask Dr. Navot, you mentioned that Israel is not a full-fledged democracy. Why do you think that is?
Because of the occupation, because of discrimination between Jews and Arabs, two structural, undemocratic features of Israeli regime. But I think, by the way, because I'm running out of time, but I think that if we want to promote peace, I think that the first step is to empower Israeli Palestinian citizens. It's not about talking about peace. It's not about planning how 2-state, 3-state common government. It's about, I think, empowering and increasing the participation of Palestinian citizens in the Israeli political system, and creating a condition in which in which the government is representing, you know, the Arabs and Jews, and they will, I think they can promote something. I think you think about the whole issue in a misguided way. You're thinking about, okay, let's think about an ideal world and then try to think how we will promote an ideal world. And I'm thinking we should think about a non-ideal world and how we create the condition that this non-ideal world will become less non-ideal. And by doing that, I think we maybe will be closer to bringing peace. This
Now,
is this is
you
this is
mentioned-
this is my, you know, I don't think that there is any point that I will comment
But-
about, you know.
There
Let
is
me ask you this. You mentioned that the occupation is one of the criteria upon which you are opining that Israel is not a democracy.
A full-fledged, you know, a regular or normal or fully democratic.
Okay, so what do you think the remedy should be? Should it be to make the Palestinians citizens of Israel?
Yeah,
Or is it to end the occupation?
no, no, and no. I think that the solution is to empower people like Abbas, Mansour Abbas, people that know how to bring votes and to be part of the coalition. Not to
What does it mean to empower? What does it mean?
to bring him from 5 seats to 8 seats to 10 seats, to do everything possible to help him to succeed politically, and to do anything possible to bring back Ayman Odeh from his radicalism to his pragmatic, because it became irrelevant. Balad is not represented in the Knesset. We need these forces. This is the future. This is the future of the peace.
But you're not discussing the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza. All your comments are restricted to Israeli Arabs.
They will bring. This is the only hope for Gaza and the occupied territories. Is I think the only hope. All external force, something that I don't see today.
But there are two
impose Israel and enforce it to drop the occupied territories, but I don't see that this is the constellation in Europe or in the United States.
Okay, in order to have a real democracy with respect and dealing with the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza, there are two, the only options that I see are two. Either to make the Palestinians in the West Bank and Gaza and East Jerusalem citizens with full rights to vote, or to withdraw from those territories and let them do whatever they want. Empowering them is a very vague notion.
Joseph, you are jumping. You are not, I think, in reality. The Israeli government, not this one, not the next one, not any government, will give the Palestinians in the occupied territory citizenship, and they will not drop from the occupied territories. I think our only chance is that we will empower Palestinian parties, and they will, from within, step by step, will lead the government to the right place. I think this is our only chance.
Okay, and we are saying that the Israeli government is not a legitimate government because it is controlling people without giving them the right to vote.
I agree,
Okay.
but I'm not there. I'm not interested.
Okay, and we are saying that the Palestinian government is not a legitimate government because they're not elected by the people. So we are saying, let's create a common, secular, legitimate government and have the election. Why is that such a big issue?
It's a non-starter. It won't work, and you have something more. But you understand?
I know you say it won't work. You can say that about anything. Why would it not work if we have an election and we have, if we spend $100 million conducting the elections and we have 6-7 million people? I mean, could you please articulate why would it not be a solution? Why would it not be a true democracy?
Democracy is a demos, Kratos. It's not a demos that you're creating. There's no such a demos of the union they're trying to do. It's a demos, Kratos. No demos, no united will. The voting and democracy are two different things. There is no such a demos that your political imagination is extremely individualistic and liberal. You're thinking that this kind of 5 million voters
You
will
are
create a democracy.
Okay, look, don't speak about me, okay?
Oh, about about the government.
Speak about, I showed you at the beginning, I showed you the elections that will take place. I said that the elections will take place online. What's wrong with that? And why would, is that technically not possible? And why would it not create a
Democracy is something more organic. It's something about community, about people that feel like people. We have no something that even closer to people in the territory that you're talking about. But listen, Joseph, I don't want to be extremely party pooper. You invited me.
No, I understand.
You have my input. I think I said enough. I don't want.
Okay.
So may I just make it very brief? So okay, suppose you have what you want. You have the Arabs in Israel have power in the Israel democracy, in the Jewish Israeli democracy, and so on. Okay, what is next? What would be the fate of the West Bank, of the Arabs?
Then I think that to normalize the presence of Palestinian citizens in Israeli politics, to normalize it, to show people it's okay, they are people, they are legitimate people, they don't kill you, they don't bite you, they're not trying to make Israel a Muslim state or Sharia. Okay, let's continue. Let's see, maybe this guy is a Palestinian, he's a nice guy, he's a non-Zionist, but he's okay, he's okay. Let's move on. Let's move on. Let's hear him. He understands me. He talks to he's a reasonable person. Let's give it a shot. I think this is our only chance. Pragmatic Palestinian politicians, not Zionist Arabs that talk like more Zionist than me, Yob Kara style, or Druzim that go to the army. Not at all. I'm talking about Palestinians that don't eliminate their Palestinian nationality, entity, belonging, and at the same time they know how to restrict their rhetoric, to be pragmatic, and to be focused on results. Focus on results and changing reality. And I think that the only chance in the meantime is Ra'am, because they are not Zionists, they are Palestinians, and they are extremely pragmatic. This is the kind of combination I believe can save Israel.
Well, can I say something? Because I actually started in the early 80s, I had a lot of contact with some students at the college at the time from Israel. One of them, it's about 5 years experience, which I was glad that I did engage with them. One of them is a student from Canada, and he served in the Israeli army. He married an Israeli Jewish girl, her dad from Iraq and her mom from Russia. But eventually, they had to divorce because his dad is racist. The Israeli, I am bringing this example because I am sure the Jews in Israel themselves is not comfortable with each other. The only way to give them together is to create a state, a threat from external threat to them. So what I'm trying to say, stop that venue for the Zionists to keep this going on while they discriminate there again among them. The story about this is just a claim, and I believe I believe it's for the Jews, for the on all of their ethnic background, and for the Palestinians and for the peace of very important at this time of history that to create a two-state solution. This should be sooner than later, and then go to some version of Joseph's IPC, which I'm sure it will accelerate the process to an
Okay.
eventual one state.
Let me have some closing remarks and then we can go on. I believe that Israeli-Palestinian government have proven, the Israeli and the Palestinian governments have proven to be unable to make peace. I strongly would disagree with Dr. Navot that we should, basically what Dr. Navot is saying is, let's have the Israeli government in control and continue with some differences that I'll let him explain. I believe that the only solution is a democracy, and a democracy for everyone, for Israelis and Palestinians in the West Bank, Gaza, and Israel. I believe that that's the only way to make peace, and that's equality. I believe common election is possible. 40% of the state of Estonia vote online. A daily war between Israel and Palestine costs, and Gaza is $100 million. $100 million could create this common government. And I believe that that is a possibility. If you are in agreement, please send a letter to your newspaper and tell them about your participation. And if you want, I'll send you a copy of that. With that, I'm going to stop sharing. Let's hear closing remarks from Dr. Navot.
Okay, let me start by saying thank you. Thank you for not only inviting me, but having the patience to hear, somebody that thinks, I think almost maybe the opposite, although that our normative point of departure is I think identical. I think all of us share the same dream, the same goals, but we are in a disagreement about the best way to achieve our dreams or to fulfill our dreams. I'm calling for a more realistic and pragmatic measures and more pragmatic and realistic analysis of political reality. If I understand you correctly, you think about in ideal terms and how to bring your ideal dreams, and I think from reality. And I'm hoping that the Arabs of Israel will change the nature of Israeli government. I think that the only future of Israeli democracy, depends entirely on the willingness of Palestinian citizens to participate in the political order. And if the Palestinian citizens will exclude themselves or not fulfill their potential, I think that the Israeli political order will be less and less and less democratic. My hope is that Zionists from the center and from the left would realize that they need desperately the Palestinians, the Palestinian citizens of Israel, and they will be willing to accept them and to build a bloc with them. And I hope that if that would happen, we'll have in the end peace. But our first mission is to preserve the ethnic democracy, the democratic features of Israeli regime, which are now in danger. But thank you really for having me here.
Thank you so much, Dr. Navot, and thank you all. I am going to leave. If some of you want to stay, Charles can manage. I have to go and be with my grandkids. So if you want to stay, I am leaving, but
thank you, Joseph.
All right. Thank you so much.